Flesherton for the last 41 years. I was born in the village of Mona Center, which is in Dufferin County, about 10 miles, I don't know which direction, from Orangeville. And my father was James Albert McFadden. He had a general store there. But in those years of 1911 to 1918, the trade in the little stores got poor because of the coming in of the cars, and people went to the bigger places to shop. So in the fall of 1918 perhaps, my father sold the store and we bought a farm down near Oshawa. We lived there for 1 year and a few months, and my father took the flu, the very bad flu that was raging in 1918, 1919. And having a heart that wasn't too strong, he developed some type of a heart ailment that was fatal, and he died on the 11th of July, 1920. This left my mother with 5 children. The oldest was 10 and a half, and the youngest was 3. So we stayed on the farm for about 1 year after that, and it was just impossible for my mother to keep things going with hired help. And my grandfather and grandmother Waller lived in Flesherton, and Grandma wasn't well, so they persuaded us to come to Flesherton to live with them. And my mother looked after her mother, and Grandma died in June 1923. I've thought many a time what a big schmozzle, shall we say, it was for my mother and 5 kids to move in on 2 older people who were here enjoying their life together. I don't know whether I'd want that to happen to me or not, but we got along pretty good. And after Grandma died, Grandpa would be back and forth to the farm. So that it was mostly Mother and us kids here. We all went to school in the little public school up on the hill.
Do you remember any teachers there, Cora?
The only teacher that I had was Mr. R.G. Holland. I was in what was called then the junior 3rd. My sister was in the 4th. According to the schools that we went to, there was junior and senior 4th. So Florence had it pretty tough for that year because she didn't have all the backing for grade 8 or grade 4th book that the other ones had, because they just, they put 3 years into 2,
yes,
according to what we had been doing in the other little public schools. But she made it because she really worked. If that had been me, I'd have never made it because I didn't just pay too much attention to books. However, we all passed our entrance, all 5 of us. My sister Florence, myself, my brother George, my brother Jim, and my sister Daisy, under Mr. Holland's tutoring. And he was quite pleased that he had put all 5 McFaddens through the entrance class. And he truly was a good teacher and a wonderful man, even though at times we thought he was pretty cranky too. But he was a good man. Then I went to high school for 3 or 4 years, and I have to admit I wasn't just really ambitious as to getting out into the workaday world and getting a job, so I had a friend who lived at Singhampton, and I went to visit her a few times, and I met Leslie Smith. Now, it didn't take much persuading, I guess. Les and I went together for about 1.5 years, and then we got married on the 22nd of December, 1928. I wasn't quite 18. I know a lot of people thought I was crazy, but I didn't think I was crazy. And to be perfectly honest, as I sit here, I can say I never once regretted the fact that I got married when I wasn't quite 18, because that seemed to be what I wanted to do. In the next 8 years, I had 4 children, Neil, Gordon, Marion, and Jim. And we got along pretty good. Things were tough on the farm, as a lot of people perhaps who are listening to me will realize. Those were the Depression days. Those were the days when things were really hard to come by. I can remember of Les working hard all day long in the bush from just daylight till dark for $1. And, you know, today a person would hardly start towards the bush for $1. But in those days, that dollar bought a lot more than $1 does now. I said we learned hard. We learned the value of money in the school of hard knocks, you might say. We really knew what it was to not have much, and yet we never were in dire want. I've been talking to some old friends of recently, and we all agreed that we never knew what it was to be hungry. If you were hungry, there was always something to eat. There maybe wasn't just the fancy stuff that we eat now, but there was always, as my mother used to say, bread and butter. If you weren't hungry, wouldn't eat bread and butter, you weren't hungry, and I believe it was true. Well, then we farmed for 20 years.
Where was your farm, Cora?
Oh, our farm was 5 miles east of Maxwell, right on this number 4 highway now. At those times, we called it the gravel road.
Yes.
There was no Highway 4 and Highway this, and I think there was Highway 10 maybe, but there was no, this wasn't Highway 4 then. And we lived right on the highway, just about 1.5 miles the other side of Tryon College. And our children all got a college education before they went to high school, because they got their elementary school in Tryon College. Those were the days, too, of the little country schools. And a lot of our good times were around the things that went on in the school. The Parents' Day, the Christmas concert, and just the different things that interested you and that your children were partaking of. Well, then in later years, I wasn't only about 33 when I developed a heart condition that I had to lay off a little bit of the heavy work, and Les wasn't too well either. His mother died in the spring of 1944, and I had been in bed all winter that winter, and we just felt that it was too much, so we got things kind of squared up, and we sold the farm and came out to town here and bought my mother's house, and that was on the 22nd of June, 1949. Now, we didn't sell the farm for very much. You would hardly believe it. I'm going to tell you that we sold the farm for $4,000.
How many acres?
100 acres. There was a house and a barn on it. There was no wall under the barn. But, you know, when you think of that, that was just 41 years ago. But that was the going price. You didn't feel that you gave it away. But anyway, as you can imagine, coming to town and living here made quite a little change. We didn't have electricity down on number 4 highway, not then. Before we left there were 3 houses on that line were wired for electricity, and eventually the rest of them, and they turned the hydro on there 2 or 3 days before Christmas after we left here. And I had been kidding my neighbors about them with their old pump and washing machines and me out here with electric ones, so I guess they had them about the next week after I did. But anyway, after we got into town, you know, there wasn't much money and there weren't jobs, and we didn't know what we'd do. And Les said, if you could get a mailer out or something like that, maybe it'd help. And as it happened, it wasn't very long until the mail route on RR2 Flushing, which was taken by Ed Ferris at the time, was put up for tender. And Les tendered for it, and he was fortunate enough to get it. So this was all new to us. All we knew about a mail route was that Matt Goldsmith came along to the mailbox about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You went down and got your mail. Scolded him if there was only a circular, and so forth and so on. But we found out a few things about it, and Les went, there was snow on the ground at that time. He got a horse. I think she was a gray horse, if I can remember correctly. He got a cutter, and he was all set to go in the mail. But just about the week before, the snow all disappeared, and the ground was bare, so he could take the car. And I can't recall now how long he did take the car, but it was for a little while anyway. Maybe it was only a couple of weeks, because that was on the 12th of December that he started. Then he didn't like sorting mail. It was so confusing, and I think he felt a little bit stupid because the other guys that were in there were all been at it, and they could do it so much quicker. So I said that I would sort the mail. So I had to go to Jim Dargavel, who was the JP for this district, and be sworn in before I could go down and sort mail. And so I sorted it, and I didn't care what the other guys thought, whether they thought I was slow or not. I sorted it, and I got it in the right spots, and Les took it around for that winter. Well, at that time, we just got $60 a month for taking the mail. Now that seems very small at this time, but at that time, I think it was probably the going rate.
How many hours a day would you be working on the mail?
Not over, when you could take the car, you wouldn't be over 2.5, I don't think.
But then you would be sorting it. That would be another.
That would be sorting it and taking it. Like, you could go around the mail route with the car in an hour if you didn't have any trouble. Yeah. So we just couldn't get by with just that $60 a month. That wasn't enough to run the house. We still had 2 kids at home and going to high school. And so I said I couldn't drive the car at that time. So I said to Les, if he got me a nice quiet horse and a buggy, I would take the mail around because I could drive a horse. And that he did. He knew this chap in Osprey Township who had a nice quiet horse. She was a black driver, and her name was Beauty. And she was a beautiful horse. I just loved her. And I used to have my little times with her to get the harness on her. We had a stable at the back of our property then, and that was where Beauty put in her time when she wasn't drawing mail. And I would go down to harness her. I think, if I might go back, I think the mail at that time came around 1 o'clock. It seemed to me it was around 1 o'clock I had to be down there. And I would go down, feed Beauty, and then I'd try to harness her. And she was very determined. She didn't want the bit in her mouth. So about 9 times out of 10, I had to stand up on the manger, and I've got fairly long arms and reach as high as I could reach, but she always got the bit in her mouth, whether she wanted it in or not. Well, and another funny little thing, maybe some of the younger people that might be listening to this won't know what the crupper is. But the crupper is a little circular thing at the end of the back band, and the horse's tail is supposed to go through that. That's to hold the back band back tight where it should be. And I would say that 9 times out of 10 we never got that done because she would stiffen her tail so much I could not make it go through that crupper. And but that didn't matter. That really didn't make any difference to the the working of the harness. It was all right like that. But we would go down there, and I used to tie her too. There was a big maple tree just by the old fire hall, and I used to tie her there. And I'd go in and sort the mail, and then we'd start off.
And where was the post office then?
Well, the post office was where Ted McTavish's place is now, and underneath Mary Banks's apartment now.
Oh yes, underneath
the
Banks's house.
Yeah, underneath the Banks's house. It was there until 1962. And after we got started off, it took us about 2.5 hours without hurrying. Now, on a cool day, Beauty would trot a little bit, but on a warm day, I didn't make her go very fast because I didn't care. That was my afternoon's job. Even though it wasn't highly paid, it was what I did for the afternoon. And I was always home about 4 o'clock. And she would dawdle along, and sometimes I'd have to jerk her a little bit because she'd fall asleep, just dawdling along. It was warm, and she would fall asleep. And if I didn't have any mail for a box, I just let the lines, sort of slack. She would just walk on by like as if that box wasn't there. But if I had mail, I would just pull the lines up a little bit and she'd stop. Just as soon as she came to the box, she'd stop. She got quite knowledgeable. And I remember one day, you have little experiences. When you have a car, you have flat tires and that. But this one day, we were going down the first hill on the side road, going over towards the East Back Line. And the britching broke. And that was quite a thing to have happen. And I can't remember what I did to kind of hold it together, but I got around to where Fred Russell lived. I think that's where the Strutts live now. And Fred went in and got the britching off a set of harness that he hadn't put it on. So that got me around that way. And Beauty was very timid too. Another time when I was going up the road, up the back line, there was a strip of paper, like a trimming off a roll of paper that you put on the wall, lying across the road, and she wouldn't go across that. I had to get out and lead her across that. She would not go across that.
And it was just paper?
Just a little bit of paper across the road, and she would not go across that. Another time there was a dead bunny on the road, like on the Monday morning. There was a dead bunny. She wouldn't go past that. I had to get out and move that thing into the ditch before she'd go down that road. She would just go tight, in front, and she would just turn around like that. And turn too short, they could break the shaft in the buggy or whatever. So I used to have to cater to her, but you could hardly blame her for being afraid of those things like that. That wasn't just a normal thing either, was it? And I did that mail for the summer of 51, summer of 50, and the summer of 51. Then in about the middle of the summer of 51, I got my license to drive the car. And I could take the truck after that. For, I don't know how many years I took it with the truck, maybe 4 or 5. I started working in the post office in 1955, anyway, in the fall. But I'll never regret those days that I spent on the mail route driving Beauty. Because it was no big chore to look after Beauty. I used to take her out in the evenings and let her eat the grass in the backyard because we didn't have a lawnmower at that time, and she was a pretty good lawnmower. I never liked to see her get dirty, so sometimes I used to wash her. She didn't mind that. And sometimes I would take somebody with me just to show them the beauty of the country as you were driving around, and especially in the fall. When you would come to the top of the hill, coming down the Valley Road, like where Gordon Smith lives now, and look across towards Fleshard, and I don't think there was any place in Ontario that was any prettier than that. It's not quite as pretty now because there aren't as many trees, but it was absolutely beautiful. And so I felt that I was doing my little part towards helping out, and I was enjoying it. Well, I think that's the end of the mail route business. Then I worked in the post office I started in, a couple of summers I worked just in holiday time. And then I started in the August 55. As everyone knows, Mr. Banks passed away in October 55. And so I was there until December 1975. And during those times, Les was home here, and he did the mail route. He also did the town work and whatever else he could get to do. And that was the way we managed. And after the mail route, the post office, after I'd retired from the post office, we both went with the mail. I did the sorting and the delivering, and Les did the chauffeuring. And we did that till 1981, we had a car accident and our car was demolished. And we didn't take the mail very much after that. We had to sublet it for that winter. We took it a little bit the next summer. And then the next summer, Les went into the hospital. And we sublet it, or, well, I don't know what you call it, just handed it over to Chester and Mary Shire. And they have been taking it ever since. But we, altogether, we had it from 49 to 81, which was quite a little season. And we enjoyed it. You know, you met an awful lot of nice people. And one thing that people were so appreciative of what you did for them. And at Christmas time, you used to you'd find a nice dozen of fresh made buns in somebody's box, or a box of candy, or just a little bit of this or a little bit of that. It wasn't just the what you got, it was the idea that they appreciated your services. And we never had any complaints. So I guess they thought we were doing it all right, maybe bringing them the right kind of mail. I hope we were. But it's different now. So I don't think there's anything more really interesting, except I'd like to tell you a little bit about Cedarside Church. Now, before I came to Flesherton, I went to the Mennonite Church at Brewster's Lake. I was a member there, and we had some good times there. And I used to think, when we decided to move, what was I going to do without the church? I didn't know how I'd get along. But when we came to Flesherton, I started going to the Baptist church, and I found out it was very much like what I had left. I've been a member of the Baptist church now for 40 years. I took the books over from Mrs. Dave Williams in 1953, and I've still got them. Nobody else wants to do them. I'm still balling things up. And sometimes it makes you wonder, you know, like somebody said to me not too long ago, I guess it was because they trusted me that they let me do them for so long. It must be. But you know, you do it, you know in yourself you do it honestly. But I was at a seminar for treasurers at an associated meeting not too long ago, and when I heard of all the things that they did that were really what should be done, I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know how to keep books, but I don't think I'm going to change. The next guy can do all those little vagaries. But I love that little church, even though it has gone down a little bit in membership. We're hopeful that it'll come back up, because I've said right from the start, if the Lord wants it to close, it'll close, and if he doesn't, it'll pick up. And so we have to leave our future in the Lord's hands, because he's the one that tells us whether we're going to go on or whether we aren't going to go on. And I can thank him many a time for the health he's given me, for helping me through surgery just this fall. And I'm almost 80. And, you know, I think, to me, that's remarkable. And without the help of the Lord, I'd never made it. At least I'd like to think that I wouldn't have made it without God's help, because he's been my help and my stay for so many years.
When you first came to the Baptist church, Cora, it was down beside the
Down
river,
on number 10 highway.
beside
Yeah.
the Boyd River.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
remember who the minister was?
Mr. Fletcher. Yeah, Mr. Fletcher came there in 1949 in May, and we came here in June. Yeah.
And you remember some of the ministers that came after that?
Mr. Fletcher was there, then Mr. Draper. Yeah, Mr. Draper was here for quite a few years, and then we came up here in 1964.
Came up to the old
Old Presbyterian church. We bought that in 1964. And we've had a few short-term ministers since then. Then Mr. Fletcher came back the second time. And I think in about 1960, Mr. Draper left us in the fall of 64, and we had one in between time. And then Mr. Fletcher came, I think, I don't know, 65 or 6 or something. But he was here for 6 years the next time, and he retired from here.
I think everyone in town liked that man.
Oh, they did too. You did too.
Even the United Church people.
Oh, everybody. There was a more of a fellowship between the two churches when Mr. Fletcher was here than there has been for a long time, than there was before, and that there has been since. Not that there isn't a fellowship between them yet. I don't mean they're not working together. All the churches, I think, are working together to a degree. But Mr. Fletcher seemed to have a way with them that everybody liked him.
There was Mr. Sherwood in there. I remember
Yes,
him.
Mr. Sherwood was there for 2 years. We had a Mr. Blakeney for 2 years. And that was all, I guess, that we had up here.
And now, who is your minister now?
Perks, Alan Perks.
Alan Perks?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lovely looking church.
Well, we think it is, and we who have stayed with it feel that it's our church and that it's up to us to keep it going. Like, I have been disappointed at some who left the church just when we seem to need them most, but then that's their business. But I feel that it's my duty, that's my church, and it's my duty to stay there and fight for it.
You have a good number of young people in your church.
Not as many now as we did have, because as is the custom, the little kids grow up and become the young people, and the young people grow up and go to college or go out to work, and the other ones grow older. If there's no young couples come in, your church is your church, your schools, everything. The attendance is down there as far as young people. We don't have a young people's group like a BYPU now, because there aren't the young people in the church to keep it going.
But the people that have worked for many years are still in their work.
Yes, some of the older ones. I think right now I might be the oldest one, and I'm not maybe the oldest member, because there was a couple of ladies joined. No, they weren't older than me. There's one or two maybe that would be older than me, but I think maybe I'm the longest time member in that church right now, and that seems impossible, you know.
You're not that terribly old.
No, I didn't think I would ever see that, because, but I didn't think I'd ever see 80. And with God's help, I'm going to see it.
When's your birthday?
In April 13th. Yeah. I'm quite satisfied. I'm retired, and I don't do anything. Some days I don't earn the salt in my porridge, but I eat it anyway and don't even feel guilty.
Well, do you want to start with where you started working in this area?
I got $20 a month. And I had to work 5 months in order to get it. If I quit before my 5 months was up, I lost my money.
Who for?
Pretty good deal. I went 20 months without any money.
Who'd you work for?
Yeah. When I got that and come down the road, Bill Holly lived on the corner in Thompson's place, and he wanted me to go up and buy a calf from Bloomfield Fairs that had ringworm on it. He said, don't give me any more than $10. Well, you see, I had 5 months' wages. I had $100. I was rich in my pocket. Yeah, rich. So, gal, I asked Uncle about the ringworm, and Billy was going to cure it. And he says, well, we'll make a place for it, and I'd like to know what he cures it with. So anyway, I went back and I put $18 in my pocket. I didn't think that I was going to get it for 10, this chunk of a calf, I didn't know. But I bought the calf for $15.50. And I took it down the road, and Bill Holly come up and he put the stuff on it. Just looked like tobacco juice, a pail of it. And that calf at midnight, why, he was steaming, just you couldn't see. So then I Where did Bob Swanton's come over and wanted to hire me, and I hired with him for the first month in the fall to do the plowing. I got $20. The board wasn't just the best. And they, for going to thrashings and like that, I got $2 more. And I worked there for 3 years and a half. And I quit that. And Ada and I went to Toronto. And she got housework, and I got work at the
Overland Car Factory.
car factory. And I got work there. And I got more a week than I got a month working on the farm. So I stayed there for 3 years and a half with Bob Swanton. And I went to Toronto. And I say I got this money, and I stayed there. And that's where Ada and I were married, in Toronto. Reverend Dunn was the minister.
What year was that?
What year was that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear, that's going back quite a few years. You'd have to go back.
Yeah, well, if we knew that, we'd know how old Mary was.
Huh?
If we knew when you were married, we might know how old Mary is.
We were married shortly after I went to Toronto. For she got a job in the east end of the city, and mine was on the outskirts of Toronto, back at the stockyard.
That'd be 70 years ago last November.
And we soon got married. And she come and we stayed, and she didn't work, I worked, and come back, and depression came. So I packed up duds and come back to Freshen. We could buy Austin Sheck, the back of Austin Sheck, that frame house. Buy it for, rent it for $5 a month. So we took it, and we come back to Toronto and stayed there. And I worked here and there till at last I bought Dan Leach's place out on the highway. Mac had it. Dan died there, and Mac, he had gangrene in his legs, so he wanted to sell it to me. A team of horses, a wagon and a plow, a set of harness, and 37 acres.
For how much, do you know?
$1,800. I didn't have much. I had money, but some, but time I had to buy the team, that's where my money went. He had a nice team of horses, and he wanted them to go with them. So I bought the horses with me. When I bought the farm, that took them most of my money that I had saved up. We farmed there for quite a number of years. Drew lumber and drew slab wood and plowed gardens in town. Then anything. Then we got there. The trouble was we had no water. We had to carry water from Joe Fields' house, a spring. So I went to work and sold the farm, the 75 or the 20,
35 acres.
26 or 8 acres. I sold it and bought up a farm up the back line. And it was a dug well, and when I looked at it, why, it was full of water in the spring of the year. But when spring come, there wasn't a drop. You couldn't get a drop out of the well. It was just the snow. I had to drill a well. Well, I didn't do the right thing. I should have drilled in the old well. But I didn't. I drilled a new one up at the barn, 176 feet deep. The water was that hard, cut the pails just in no time. I left there. Uncle George Clark wanted me to go down to live on the farm. Aunt Lucy had passed away, and we were doing his work anyway. So we sold it to Lori Betts, the farm, and went down to Uncle's, and we got down there, why, things didn't go just right. No. He thought that he paid too much for it in the last few years of his life, giving it to me. So I said he didn't have to, because I went to work and bought the farm of Andrew Gilchrist. I bought it. He didn't know it, but I did. So we moved there and left him alone. I had the deed of it, but I give him the deed back. I didn't have to. I had the deed of that 76 acres on the back line. So we got there to the 6 corners. And out there then we have been to Toronto and back. That's it. I'm here now.